Greetings all, welcome. It's an honour to have you here at the Saphira Centre of Shamanism, where we break down the ancient esoteric practices of shamanism and the occult, bringing them into balance with the deep psyche. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the shamanic and occult sciences. It is an honour to have you here. Thank you for joining me once again. Today we're going to be speaking about the truth about Thaumiel, which is the top Qliphothic sphere and the last stage of initiation through the Qliphothic sphere workings. This is a very powerful and important stage of initiation, but it is also the most anticipated and misunderstood as well. Many people report having very victorious experiences when they initiate through the sphere of Thaumiel. I'm not saying that this is untrue, but what I've seen from other people and my own experience is that Thaumiel is not really like this at all. Don't get me wrong, at the end of every Qliphothic sphere there is always a wave of clarity that comes in once you have integrated the energies. But in my view, Thaumiel is quite the opposite to what a lot of people claim it is. And I feel like this is part of the trial of the entire Qliphoth itself. I think whenever you go into this initiatory process, you're supposed to come to realizations about how what many people say about it or what you've assumed about it is totally wrong. And Thaumiel is a perfect example of this. Many people claim to have very victorious experiences because it is the last stage of the initiatory process, but what many people experience is quite the opposite. It's accompanied by existential grief and the collapse of what is left of your old self. Many people forget that Thaumiel is the purest and most intense force of separation. Resonant with the crown, it is symbolic of the oppressing forces of the crown chakra and the pineal gland. So basically what this means is that Thaumiel, when it goes unchecked, represents the shell around the pineal gland, or should I say the calcification of the pineal gland, and humanity's separation from their soul level enthusiasm and divinity. So when you initiate through this sphere, it is not just enlightenment, but you have to taste that calcification process and chip away at it before the true decalcification process can start to unfold. This means that you have experiences whereby you feel extremely conflicted and extremely separated from the world around you. And this is part of the trial within Thaumiel. The trial within Thaumiel is not falling into nihilism and continuing to perceive yourself as separate from the world around you. Perceiving yourself as separate from the world around you is falling into the trap of Thaumiel. Okay, the purpose of Thaumiel is to give you a paradoxical initiation whereby you are experiencing your separation so that you can shed the illusion that is attached to it. Thaumiel is made up of two ruling divinities, but I feel like there are many other ruling spirits within this realm as well, depending on what source of information you are observing it from. Thaumiel is made up of basically a throne that is made up of two opposing currents of energy. These are symbolic of Satan, the adversary, the alternate current, and Moloch, the direct current. Satan and Moloch are deliberately opposing forces and are symbolic of the fact that what runs humanity and what runs our illusion of separation is divine opposition. So the purpose of initiating into this realm is to experience divine opposition in its rawest form. And in doing so, when you can find the equilibrium between these opposing forces and sit on that throne of duality with both of them flowing through you, this is the ultimate definition of the integration of the shadow self and reaching a stage of evolution that is beyond duality as a whole. Thaumiel weaves control into the collective consciousness in a very significant way. All you've got to ask yourself is what happens to humanity when they are fed a lie of separation from their own divinity and from their own sovereignty. what happens when you calcify the entire collective consciousness's pineal gland. You make them more impressionable, and you also make them more easily controlled. Thalmiel is the very force of separation that runs the world. Okay, everybody operates by default from the perspective of the illusion of separation. How can I do this to prove my worth? How can I attain this linear result in order to then perceive myself as better or perceive myself as enough? This is Thaumiel working within you. This is what happens when the pineal gland calcifies. You become detached from your truth and authenticity. So initiation into this realm is supposed to give you that raw taste of separation so that you can process and integrate it. A big trial within Thaumiel is falling into the illusion of the fractured crown. The illusion of the fractured crown is symbolic of the illusionary linear results that we are wired to strive for in order to define our sense of self by. And many people who initiate into Thaumiel get caught in the glory of this realm. However, the whole purpose of this realm is to see through that glory in its totality, to see what's actually on the other side of it, which is actually nothing, may I add. Okay, when you initiate through Thaumiel, it is a gate into the void. Into the void, into the deepest aspects of your unconscious mind, whereby the true unraveling process begins to unfold. Many people who initiate into Thaumiel get completely caught within this illusion of separation. They fall into the spouse of Lilith or son of Lucifer or second coming of Jesus illusion of grandeur, and don't actually move beyond what Thaumiel is trying to initiate them beyond. Thaumiel often results in enormous grief. Basically, you've been crowned with this fractured crown, but you've got to realize that the crown is fractured for a reason, because it can break at any moment. So this is where you receive a lot of very dense trials around how you relate to power as a whole. And the majority of people who do initiate through this realm, this is quite a big statement, but I feel it's vastly accurate. The majority of people who do initiate into Thaumiel get caught in the separation and don't move beyond it, and then are completely shocked by the stages of initiation that unfold after, because they are still trying to hold on to that crown that fractured long ago. So we're going to be discussing the truth about Thaumiel in depth. I'm going to be sharing some of my experiences of initiating into this realm. We're going to be discussing the nature of this realm in depth, so definitely stay tuned. So it should go without saying that Thaumiel is a threshold of initiation and is not the final point of initiation. Okay, I've lost count of the amount of people I've seen saying that Thaumiel is the last phase of initiation, or saying that they've completed the entire Qliphoth once they've got to Thaumiel. Okay, it's the biggest illusion ever, and in my view is a very strong indication that either the person has completely misunderstood the initiatory process or has not been through it at all. Okay, Thaumiel is a rite of passage that sends you into the void, whereby the real unraveling process really begins to unfold. And that's something which is far more formless in nature and much harder to track. Whereas when you've been initiating through the Qliphothic spheres, what you're doing is that you're opening up these different portions of yourself. And Thaumiel basically represents the death of the veil that is separating you from the deepest aspects of your unconscious mind. This is why some people refer to the stages of initiation that unfold after the Qliphothic spheres as the apocalypse, because basically what Thaumiel does is unlock that final door that basically causes the primordial waters of your unconscious mind to come literally streaming through, smashing through the veil and into your conscious mind to be processed and integrated. So understand that Thaumiel represents that core threshold that is the final death of who you were when you were going through the Qliphothic spheres, and also who you were as a result of your early years trauma. Okay, how we are wired within the world around us is basically to treat life as a validation stage. Everything becomes a validation point for the falsehood and something to use to fuel our separation and perceiving ourselves as separate from the world around us. But all of this is a trauma response, and Thaumiel should really show you that in an extremely tangible way. Okay, when you're initiating through the sphere and tasting the separation of divinity and are basically being thrown between the opposing forces of Satan and Moloch, the goal is to find the integration point between them. Okay, and initiating through this realm is the death of who you were before the Qliphothic spheres and as you were going through the Qliphothic spheres. Okay, every Qliphothic sphere is a layer of identity. A layer of identity that has been constructed from societal level programming, from your early years trauma, and also the karmic imprints that mirror your life experiences. So then instead of reality being a force of separation, and instead of reality being a stage of validation for the false self, the Qliphothic spheres are designed to open you up to a state of being that dwells beyond that. And in order to do that, you need to come face to face with the opposing forces that are battling for the throne. And you, in this initiatory process, are the throne. In other words, Satan and Moloch are battling for your vessel. It's a really strange feeling. So I would be quite dubious personally about anybody who says that Thaumiel is a completely victorious process, because in my view, and what I've seen with other people, it is not just victorious. It doesn't mean that there is not elements of victory in there that are there to be enjoyed, but it completely misunderstands the entire purpose of this initiatory process. So when you initiate into the Qliphothic sphere of Thaumiel, you do get that victorious feeling. Okay, it's like, oh my god, the energies of the final Qliphothic sphere are actually flowing into my consciousness. And what happened with me is that I brought the energies into my body, into my vessel, and then was basically pulled into the realm of Thaumiel, which took on the form of an infinitely dark realm that was kind of illuminated by these like light opposing forces that were making up this sort of anti-cosmic throne. And this is a very common depiction of Thaumiel. And the floor was also like molten rock, but was also smooth, completely smooth as well. Sitting upon this throne is Lucifer, in my view. I also felt that Samael was very present within this sphere as well, but for me, the primary ruler was Lucifer. And the fact that Lucifer sits upon the throne of Thaumiel is extremely symbolic of the activation of the pineal gland and the decalcification of the pineal gland, because Lucifer is the lantern and represents in a way that point of equilibrium between the opposing forces of Satan and Moloch. And because he's the lantern into the shadow self, what is the pineal gland for us? It is literally a lantern, an electrical lantern inside our heads that grants us access to different levels of perception that are beyond what we have been programmed to see and perceive. So Lucifer is very symbolic of the activation of the pineal gland that takes place when you initiate through this realm. Now, As I mentioned before, in order for that activation process to take place, you have to actually understand what caused the calcification of the pineal gland in the first place, which is the divine opposition, okay? And the battling of Satan and Moloch is deeply symbolic of that separation process, okay? Basically, what the realm of Thaumiel shows you is how our entire world is established off of a throne of divine opposition. Okay, basically, it's the separation of Thaumiel, of the unchecked Thaumiel, that runs our world, keeps us separated from our soul level enthusiasm and divinity, basically making everything that we do become an act of validation for our separation. Okay, and this is why many people in the left-hand path perceive themselves as separate because they're not actually passing this initiatory stage. This is the thing, they're using these demonic energies to perceive themselves as more separate without understanding that the initiation comes through a paradox. Every demon represents a paradoxical initiator, represents things within yourself that you are supposed to master, not things within yourself that you are supposed to fall a victim to. So this goes for Qliphothic initiates as well as demonolators and practitioners of demon magic and demonic invocation. The goal of working with these energies from an evolutionary point of view is not to become more like them. The goal of working with demonic energies is to master what the given spirit is a personification of. And every Qliphothic sphere represents trials of temptation, trials of separation that you are supposed to see beyond so that you can actually embark on the true process of individuation. And Thalmiel is individuation, okay? Is individuation. It's the integration of the opposing forces of Satan and Moloch. And if you fall into the illusion of separation here, then you are not embarking on that stage of individuation that the Qliphoth is all about. But you may actually be using it to fall into deeper levels of nihilism, total meaninglessness, and greater separation, which is the exact thing that the Qliphoth is there to initiate you beyond. This is the thing. So many people in the left-hand path go into this with the illusion of Thaumiel very much intact. Okay, and when they get to the sphere of Thaumiel, they use the award, or should I say the perceived award, of attaining the throne of Lucifer as a reason to then fuel their separation and actually separate themselves more from their true vulnerability. So it really does require a lot of discernment, okay? And Thaumiel is a very direct representation of that, okay? Because you are facing the throne of the opposing forces of Satan and Moloch, you have to understand that you are the equilibrium, okay? You are the integration point between them, okay? You have to find that point of integration. You have to let yourself become the axes of these opposing forces so that you can actually embody true individuation and not do what most Qliphothic initiates do and fall completely into the other camp and fall completely into left-hand path narcissism. It's a very big trap with these initiatory processes. Okay, so every daemonic spirit and every Qliphothic sphere, tunnel, stellar outland, whatever it is, represents forces that you are there to master, not forces that you are there to become more similar to, and not forces that you are there to fall a victim to. And it's absolutely essential to understand this, at least by the time you get to Thaumiel, okay? Because this is where you are tasting separation in its rawest form, and you have a choice here. Either you choose separation, okay, and you walk the path of separation, and everything you do becomes a badge to decorate your separation, or you choose to walk the path of individuation. Okay, and individuation is true integration. So at Thaumiel, in my view, you do face a bit of a crossroads. What type of practitioner are you going to be? Are you going to be the type of practitioner that is going to integrate the opposing forces, or are you going to continue to divide them? It's a massive question that you have to answer when you initiate through the Qliphothic sphere of Thaumiel. So you have to understand, what is it going to be? Are you going to integrate these opposing forces, or are you going to continue to basically use these energies to fragment your psyche more? And that's when people fall into the traps of the left hand path, the whole second coming of Jesus thing, the whole spouse of Lilith thing, the whole son of Lucifer thing, and all things like that. Okay, so in order to really ensure that you are successful in this path, individuation is the key. Okay, which means that finding the equilibrium between Satan and Moloch is the most essential thing. Now, what many people experience when they initiate through the sphere is that they get given the throne of Lucifer. Okay, what often happens, and what happened with me, is that Lucifer was waiting around the throne of the divine opposition, offered me the throne, I sat upon the throne and felt the forces of Satan and Moloch flow into me from either side. I felt both energies, both currents enter me at an equal rate. And then Lucifer gifted me the fractured crown, placed it upon my head, and I felt the activation process of the pineal gland start to unfold. Now, what did this manifest within my day-to-day life? Extreme existential grief, as different things were happening in my life that were very much indicating the potential death of the older aspects of me through the death of loved ones, opportunities, clients were falling away, different aspects of my business were falling away, faced the potential death of family members, and all things that were resonant with the core karma that I was processing within the entirety of the Qliphothic initiatory process. What happened in my day-to-day is that I felt myself being thrown between the current of Satan and Moloch, literally like I was the throne and Satan and Moloch were fighting inside of me for the throne. It was a pretty epic process, but also an extremely frustrating one as well. I would literally feel different currents of energy coming over me. So at times I would feel Satan coming into me and possessing my body, and then I would feel Moloch coming into me and possessing my body, and then they would literally barge each other out the way, and then the other one would barge the other one out the way, and it was literally like my mood was like fluctuating like that. Literally, like my mood was just literally fluctuating at a rate that I had never really experienced with anything before. Literally 1 minute. I mean, I've experienced mood swings in alchemical processes before. It's pretty normal, to be honest. You know, the whole shamanic slash occult bipolar thing is a real thing when you start to go deep into your unconscious mind, because you're basically moving between your shadow self and then your false self. And then as you go deeper into the shadow, the false self does everything in its power to resist that process of initiation. But this was to a whole other degree. Okay, literally, I was feeling like 1 minute I was completely liberated. Okay, and this is what I felt like as Satan coming through me. After a while, you get to sort of actually recognize what being is taking over your body. At first, I was like, okay, I feel really euphoric. I feel great. This is what real dark empowerment feels like. Have I attained the philosopher's stone? Those are the thoughts and feelings that I was getting within this realm. And then it would just switch. All of a sudden, I'd be like, I hate the world. I hate everybody. I hate everyone around me, and visualizing people getting hurt and all kinds of crazy things like that. Yeah, so I got to kind of recognize that when Satan was coming over my body, that basically manifested feelings like questioning, understanding like different constructs that I used to be attached to, feelings of wanting to rebel, but also came with like a sensation of almost like paradoxical euphoria. Whereas when Moloch came over my being and actually possessed my body within this realm, I would feel completely powerless and feel a slave to systematic idealization. And what I mean by systematic idealization is basically like the idealization of an external result or an idealization of the things that society basically programs you into seeking that are not actually real concepts. So Moloch is the personification of the repression of innocence and the power struggle that we experience within our day to day. Okay, basically, like when we are powerless to something, or we feel powerless to a situation, or completely powerless to the world around us, that is a personification of Moloch. That is basically there to help us to master that powerlessness to then attain the opposite. Whereas Satan comes with sacred rebellion, comes with seeing past illusionary constructs, questioning your reality, questioning different things. The feeling that I was getting as I was being pinballed between these opposing forces was like, as Moloch would come through, I'd be really angry, like lashing out at people around me uncontrollably. And then when Satan came through, I'd have feelings like, is the Qliphoth even a real thing? Like I started to get a real sensation of being completely cheated by the Qliphoth. Okay, and this is where like potential projection on the Qliphoth I feel can start to come in. Okay, I feel like a core stage of initiation and a core stage of or a core sign that you are integrating the Qliphoth is the numerous different times that this thought comes up. Is the Qliphoth even a real thing? Is this even a real initiatory system? Am I just lying to myself? When you're asking those questions within the Qliphothic realms, you are asking the right questions because that means that your false self is being dismantled and you are no longer identifying with the Qliphoth, okay? And that's the whole purpose of the Thaumiel initiation. Basically, it's a rite of passage out of suffering. You do not need to suffer anymore. Okay, and what it really shows you is that many people are more comfortable in separation and the perpetual cycles of suffering that is brought by the unchecked Qliphothic realms. So as you leave that predefined Qliphothic structure that has been encasing your being, you are moving into an entirely formless space that is no longer defined by anything outside of you. At which point, in Thaumiel, you have to understand that you have a choice as to whether you suffer or not. This is the thing. You are not in control over certain things that come into your day-to-day life, but you are in control over how you respond to them and how you process the initiations in your day-to-day. Okay, many people go into these realms because they are attached to suffering. It's like a self-punishment thing. I have to suffer. It's like in the left-hand path communities, it's like everywhere. It's literally like it's a competition as to who's suffered the most within the Qliphothic realms. It's like that's what really makes me think these people just do not understand. Yeah, I'm not saying everyone. There are some very good practitioners and initiates of the Qliphoth out there, okay? And a lot of them I can absolutely vouch for. And I'm a fan of the work of numerous different magicians and sorcerers that I feel are successful Qliphothic initiates. But the majority of people in the left-hand path communities are operating from the perspective of who's suffered the most. Okay, and this is nihilism. Okay, this is separation because we do not see ourselves as worthy of unity, of individuation. Okay, and this makes initiation through the Sephiroth even more important because when you effectively initiate Thalmiel, you move into greater resonance with Kether. Kether being the Sephirothic aspect of Thalmiel. Kether is divine union, is oneness, okay, and is the result of individuation, basically. Okay, I don't feel that you can taste Kether without going through not Salmiel, Thalmiel. I don't think that you can fully taste Kether without going through Thalmiel personally, purely because Thaumiel is the calcified pineal gland. Okay, and your job is to decalcify it by tasting the separation of these opposing forces. Okay, so what comes with this sphere is massive fluctuations of mood, existential collapse, and the collapse of identity structure as you knew it before. Okay, this is a very significant phase of initiation whereby your old identity structures fall apart completely. And when that happens, you have a choice as to whether you hold on to them and try and dig through the ashes of what has already burnt, trying to rebuild it, or whether you are going to commit to actually running your kingdom in a way that is actually resonant with your true will and ultimately what your soul has come here to sustainably embody. Okay, understand that, and this really emphasizes the point of Thaumiel being a threshold. The purpose of going through this initiatory process is to connect you to your true will. Okay, to shed the illusionary karmic structures and foundations of identity that are separating you from your true will. But understand that you have free will, so you can deviate from the true will. This is the thing, okay? If you choose separation, you can deviate from the true will, okay? The soul wants unity, okay? The soul wants integration, it wants openness, it wants vulnerability. Okay, it's the false self that wants separation. It's Yaldabaoth or the demiurge that wants separation. Okay, so Thalmiel is that sort of final rite of passage where it's like, okay, what type of practitioner am I going to be? Am I going to remain in my illusion, or am I going to let myself become the axis? And we always have a choice as to what option we choose, realistically speaking. So as these opposing forces battle it out for the throne, you will get to recognize when each current of energy is over you. Okay, maybe you'll feel called to invoke Satan or invoke Moloch when you're embodying a certain energy. Remember that these are forces that are here to help you master their qualities, not to become them. So if you're invoking Moloch, you are basically learning how to step out of that initiatory process. Basically, you're learning how to step beyond what Moloch is teaching you, or what Moloch is or appears to be showing you on the surface. Okay, it's all paradoxical in nature. Moloch is the personification, the minotaur of power loss. Okay, the minotaur of the repression of innocence and illusionary power dynamics. So the purpose of working with Moloch is to actually break free of illusionary power dynamics. Okay, whereas the purpose of working with Satan is to integrate that rebel within. Okay, to integrate that aspect of self and use Satan as a core current that moves you into a place of actually being able to question things and feeling comfortable questioning things and stepping outside of societal level norms, or even societal level norms that you're carrying without even fully realizing it. And after a while, these opposing forces will start to basically find an equilibrium within you. Okay, but initially it is a very erratic sphere. Okay, it's energies. The energies of Thaumiel, in my view, are not really victorious until the end. And even at the end of it, it's not really a full victory, because the whole point is to see through the fractured victory. Okay, and if you are getting stuck within that space of victory, I really would question, why have I gone into this in the first place? You know, have I gone into this to actually see beyond the fractured crown, or have I gone into it to actually attain the fractured crown and hold on to it? Because the whole thing about the fractured crown is that you have to let the illusion of it dissolve. This is the whole point. And otherwise, we become core vessels of the very forces that we are trying to break out of, which are the forces of separation itself. Okay, so Thaumiel represents that very important energy of integration. Okay, it's like, are you going to do this? Are you going to integrate? Are you going to embark on this process for individuation, or are you not? It's one or the other. Lucifer is the primary guide within this realm to basically go to for invocations or evocations, to merge your consciousness with this archetype that represents the illuminated pineal gland. Okay, and because Lucifer sits on the throne of the opposing forces, he is the equilibrium between them. Okay, so Lucifer can help you to integrate some of the deepest aspects of self, and his light becomes extremely bright to the point where you can no longer hide within that illusion of separation. So invoking Lucifer within this realm is extremely helpful. When I was going through this realm, I was also getting a lot of abyssal energy as well, like Da'arthic energy. Part of that was because my partner was in the, literally entered the Sephirothic abyss on the same day that I entered Thaumiel. Okay, so I entered Thaumiel on the same day that my partner entered the Sephirothic abyss using my initiatory system, Echoes of Kether. So our relationship was literally moving between this kind of like dissolution energy and these opposing forces of Satan and Moloch. And then what that was doing, and this is the whole thing about the Scarlet Woman, is that me being in that sort of erratic state was then evoking a lot of stuff around her past trauma. And then what she was kind of bringing to the surface was then making me angry and embodying these different sort of opposing forces within self. So it was literally kind of like being pinballed, you know, between like the Da'arthic energy and the Thalmiel energy in my personal experience. Because if you're in a partnership, as you're going through these initiatory processes, you are going to experience what the partner is initiating through. So if, for example, then my partner initiating through Darth whilst I was in Thaumiel, I'm also going to experience Darth. This is the whole point, okay? Our relationship is deeply alchemical, far from perfect. That's the whole purpose of the primal masculine and feminine, okay? It's far from perfect. And what this was really bringing was like this deep Darthic energy, almost like Thaumiel with a Darthic essence behind it. And then she was also, throughout my entire Qliphothic process, experiencing this sphere that I was within. So literally everything in my life was focused around opposing forces. Okay, I literally had also my home life was quite erratic in terms of, you know, my mother's cancer and that kind of sort of erratic energy of one day it being this or this happening and then the next day something completely different happening. Literally like these opposing forces manifest as like two different realities taking place at once. It's like in Thaumiel, or by the time you get to Thaumiel, so much has crumbled to the point where it's like on the surface a lot is going well, but at the same time there's still a lot of unfinished business. This is the whole point, okay? You do not feel completely finished by the time you reach the end of the Qliphothic sphere workings. Yes, there is integration that takes place, but what I've seen with myself and many other people, you enter into the Qliphoth not through clarity, but through chaos, and you also move through it through chaos as well. It's all extremely paradoxical in nature. So what happens when you have basically integrated Thaumiel is that you will taste Kether very strongly. So you will feel the opposing forces of Satan and Moloch basically merging within you and becoming this unified force. At the end of Thaumiel, you will experience a massive grounding effect, which is basically where everything that you've processed within the Qliphothic spheres then crystallize back down into the physical body. Everything that you've experienced in the previous Qliphothic spheres in terms of initiation then crystallizes back into the body. But what follows after this is often a feeling of more grief, purely because your old sense of self is no longer intact. It is gone. It is ash. But now you have opened up the doorways to the deepest aspects of your unconscious mind. So now you have no other option but to flow through the void in a way that is not structured by any means. Okay, and this is why people who do not effectively integrate thalmiel and get caught in the illusion of separation, this is why many people do struggle in the later stages of the initiatory process, because it's going to force them into individuation. And unless they are really willing, ready and willing to embark on that journey of true openness and vulnerability, then what's going to happen after, the void energies are going to flood into the system and completely overstimulate the nervous system and create all kinds of different mental and emotional reactions to the energies that you have basically opened the doors to. So understand that the Qliphothic spheres open the doors to the real integration process that is going to take place. Yes, it's intense. Yes, it's tangible. Yes, you go through a lot of karma purification and the rupture of identity as you know it when you go through the Qliphothic spheres. Yes, but once you've passed from Thaumiel onwards, then you get unraveled. Okay, what is left begins to unravel at an extremely accelerated rate. Okay, and this is why initiatory systems such as the Stellar Outlands, which is Enoch Petrocelli's channeled system via his book The Black Witch, highly recommend, by the way. This is why systems like that are also very important to continue the path working after. You know, when people just stop at Thalmiel, it's like it's completely contradictory. This is the thing. So do not get into this Qliphothic initiation process if you are planning to stop at the last sphere. Okay, if you're planning to stop at that top sphere of Thaumiel, then it's a bit like being crowned king or queen and then basically choosing to leave the throne straight after. It's basically the same thing. Oh, I've become king, I've become queen, so I'm going to leave now. Okay, no, no, it doesn't work like that. Okay, it really doesn't work like that. If only it did, it would be far more simple, and realistically, it would be much easier if it was striving for that linear result. But the whole point of the Qliphoth is seeing past that linear result. And Thalmiel is an energy which is there to show you that in its totality. When you've initiated through Thaumiel, you also experience a lot of very beautiful benefits as well. Enhancements in psychic abilities, your ability to see and communicate with spirits greatly enhances beyond anything experienced before because you're activating the crown. Okay, basically what you're doing is that you are activating the very force that all of the New Age spirituality wants to activate but are nowhere near grounded enough to integrate, because you've done it in a staggered way. You've opened up these different energetic centers, starting with the root, starting with the earth, moving up through these different realms, through these different sort of stages, through these different hierarchies, and then you've got to the crown last and activated that. After that is when the real unraveling begins to unfold. So Thalmiel is a beautiful energy. It is, if you can see past the illusion of separation, that is the very definition of Thalmiel. Okay, and if you can see past that illusion of separation and genuinely embark on this journey of individuation, then this is when the real initiatory process begins to unfold. Okay, are you going to continue to try and be one of these occultists who is prancing around in a black cape and wearing these false crowns? Or are we really going to approach it in a trauma-informed way and actually do what these energies are here for, and that's integrate and really evolve and not just create the illusion of that? Okay, because the whole trial behind this throne, behind this fractured crown, behind Thalmiel, is showing you how superficial the world has been established as. Okay, it's basically showing you the superficial lens on initiation as a whole. Okay, and the feeling that you should get by the time you integrate Thalmiel is the genuine feeling that, yeah, a lot of what people say about this and a lot of what I assumed about what my initiatory path is complete bullshit, because you are embarking on the process in harmony with your personal truth. Absolutely essential. But I think that's everything that I needed to say on Thaumiel. Be sure to check out my membership programs within the first and second links of the description of this video. But for now, thank you guys. Definitely hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.